said, I grew up all over the world, and in many countries that I lived with my parents, I attended American schools. And every single day of the week, you would stand up in class, face the flag, put your hand on your heart, and recite a Pledge of Allegiance. And I think it's something that's very, very powerful for us as a South African nation. A nation with a very, very painful and divided past, where we are seeking very actively to build a united nation. And I think one of the most solid foundations that we have to build that united nation is our Constitution. And I think reciting that Constitution for me reminds me every single time where we come from, where we are, what the challenges are that we face, but also the vision of the kind of country that we want and must become. And I think that Constitution also speaks to us today, where we're here to launch a small claims court, because it talks about our commitment as a nation to the rule of law, to access to justice, and ultimately building a society in which all can enjoy human rights and the dignity of all can be respected. And integral to that is having our disputes resolved through the application of the law in a society that respects the rule of law. And unfortunately, that very basic concept of a rule-governed society and world at the moment is increasingly under serious question and serious threat. And I think it behoves us to stand united in defending that principle. I would also like to convey the very, very warm greetings from Minister Mamuluku Kubai. She is out of the country at the moment. She has also delegated responsibility for small claims courts to myself, just as in my previous life as Deputy Minister, Minister Jeff Radebe had done so. And therefore, it's a real honor and a privilege to be here and to talk about matters that go to the very heart of access to justice. I have very, very fond memories of doing my first small claims court launch. It was in nowhere else other than in Sutherland in the Northern Cape. Yep. And it was during winter, by the way. I did that in October of 2010, and a lot has happened since then in terms of small claims courts. And I think this launch, the launch of this small claims court in Booysens, is just yet another step in that long road to enhancing access to justice for all and ensuring that all are equal before the law. Now, the promise of equality before the law stands in a constant tension stands in constant tension with the reality of unequal resources. On the one hand, we have the aspiration of impartial justice. We know that to be symbolized by Lady Justice with a blindfold. But on the other hand, there's the lived experience where wealth and knowledge tilt the scales that Lady Justice, blindfolded, has in her hands. Her blindfold, along with the scales and the sword she carries, represents fairness, or is supposed to represent fairness, balance, and the authority of the law. Yet in today's world, this symbolism often clashes with the lived reality of the people of our country and in many other countries in the world. There are scholars such as the Russian Yevgeny Pashukanis, who long observed that law often reflects the logic of exchange in society. Legal rights indeed can resemble commodities. They're formally equal on paper, yet in practice, their use depends on the resources a person can bring to bear. Just as in the marketplace, those with greater means are better able to realize the value of their rights, while the poor are left with rights that exist in theory, but not in practice. This is why access to justice cannot be understood merely as the existence of rights, but as the real capacity to exercise them. If rights remain trapped in the domain of the abstract, they risk serving only those who already exist, who already possess power. And this is the reality that we face, not only in South Africa, but across the world. That is also why we need courts, such as our small claims courts. We need innovative ways to help people resolve their disputes in quick, cost-effective, and user-friendly ways. The very need for the existence of small claims courts arises from this contradiction. They transform the clash between the ideal and reality into a practical step towards fairness. Small claims courts disrupt this imbalance. They make rights practically usable by stripping away the costs and complexities that too often turn justice into a privilege instead of a right. In this sense, these courts help to close the gap between the formality of rights and their substance in people's lives. Earlier, I was speaking to Councillor Crichton and his fellow councillors, and they say that Booysens is divided into a rich area and a poor area, and the dividing line between the rich and the 12 is the N12 highway. Now, we've got, through our small claims courts and other measures, to build a bridge over the N12 highway that runs between the rich part and the poor part of our justice system. And that's exactly what small claims courts are all about. Because in these courts, as has been pointed out by many speakers before me, we don't need any legal representatives. Members of the community can approach the clerk of a small claims court who can assist them to draft a summons. The summons can either be handed to the respondent or the clerk of the court can assist them to have the summons delivered by the sheriff or by the police. And although the names of these courts have small in them, there's really nothing small about the impact that these courts have on the lives of people. The current monetary jurisdiction is limited to claims not exceeding 20,000. We'll come back to this issue of the jurisdiction. It's envisaged that this amount will increase during the current financial year. We have written to quite a number of role players proposing that before the end of this year that we increase the monetary jurisdiction of small claims courts to 30,000 rand. I'll come back a bit about further increases. But the impact of the small claims court has been very, very significant. During the first quarter of this financial year, 2025-26 alone, 8,515 new small claims were registered, amounting to 57.9 million rand. That's in the first quarter alone. 7,729 cases worth 53.4 million were finalized, and 28,872 matters totaling more than 194 million rand remain pending. That's very, very significant, especially given the realities that we Okay, are we back on air? Okay. In my address at the opening of the Sutherland Small Claims Court 15 years ago, I remarked that access to justice is traditionally understood in terms of legal rights, processes, and procedures, often shadowing the socio-economic element, particularly that of poverty. And there are a number of surveys released recently that confirm the stark inequality across income groups. Given modest average household incomes compared to high legal fees, private representation, legal representation, is out of reach of most. And this is what makes small claims court so vital for so many South Africans. The Income and Expenditure Survey 2022-3, which was published by Stats SA in January of 2025, is the latest available national data set on household income and spending patterns. This survey is one of the most comprehensive tools that South Africa uses to understand inequality, poverty, and consumer behavior. And it shows that the average annual household income in South Africa, in 2023, the national average household income was estimated at around 204,000 per annum. And that translates into about 17,000 rand per month. The Legal Practice Council's guideline for tariffs and fees in civil matters for 2024 reflects a suggested hourly rate for a level 3 legal practitioner. That's a legal practitioner with a minimum of 3 years of full-time general practice experience, of 673 rand per hour in a magistrate's court. Now, if one views that tariff against the national average household income of 17,000 rand, it becomes very, very clear why so many people cannot afford the costs of private legal representation. And even if they can afford it, they cannot run the risk of incurring costs in protracted, complicated legal battles. So, the interest in and the demand for small claims courts is very clear. And from the side of the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, it's evident because small claims courts are consistently amongst the top 5 searched sites on the department's website. Often it scores up to 20,000 hits per month. So there's a very real interest of people for effective, affordable, understandable justice. We need to ensure that we make justice accessible, all the more so given the levels of poverty and inequality in our country. Rising unemployment, inflation, and poverty are not isolated statistics. They are interconnected pressures that reinforce one another. Each intensifies the vulnerability of households, particularly women, while simultaneously heightening the demand for mechanisms of justice that are swift, simple, and affordable. The strength of small claims courts lies in their ability to intervene precisely where these forces intersect, at the point where economic hardship collides with human need for fairness. However, consumer and producer price inflation were both up for the second consecutive month. Headline consumer inflation rose to 3.5%, with rising food prices continuing to place pressure on household budgets. Poverty also disproportionately affects women. As August was Women's Month in South Africa, it provided an opportunity to explore gender gaps in the labor market. The findings show that women remain economically vulnerable. So, we've stated the problem very clearly, I think. Let's turn to the solutions. Last month, we celebrated the 40th anniversary of the existence of small claims courts. The journey of small claims courts over the past 4 decades has not been linear. Each step forward has emerged from grappling with the limitations of the past. From 7 courts in 1985, serving a narrow section of society, to 418 courts, extending justice to previously excluded communities. This growth has been born out of overcoming contradictions between accessibility and affordability, between aspiration and reality. And today, as I said, we have 418 courts operating across the country. I think we have fairly close to wall-to-wall small claims court coverage. I think in 1994, that amount, if I remember correctly, stood at around 120. So in the 30 years of democracy, we've really worked all out. And I also just want to pay tribute to my successors, and some of them are both my successors and predecessors, like Advocate Johnny de Lange, Mr. John Jeffrey, who also at various times carried that baton forward to where we are now. And I think it is one of those achievements of our democracy that we can be truly proud, because that expansion of small claims courts has had a very, very positive effect of dramatically extending access to justice, particularly for previously marginalized communities. As I said, I want to come back to the question of monetary jurisdiction. Now, the National Small Claims Court Steering Committee has made a very, very powerful and impassioned plea for us to increase the monetary jurisdiction up to 50,000 Rand. And at the moment, well, the view that we've taken is that in principle, we are in favor of that increase. But before we implement such an increase, we've got to be very, very careful that we've got all of our ducks in a row, because increasing the jurisdiction to 50,000 is going to result in a huge increase in number of cases. So in anticipation of that, we've got to make sure that the administrative foundation and infrastructure is there, that our small claims court clerks are up to handling that increase in cases. Secondly, we've got to be sure that we've got the number of commissioners to hear those cases, and also that they have the necessary skill, knowledge, and experience to handle bigger and more complicated cases. The third issue that we need to look at is where the small claims courts fit in with all of our other courts. At the moment, the monetary jurisdiction for district courts is 200,000, and that for regional courts is 400,000. Now, if we're going to bring small claims courts up, I think there's a very compelling case to say that the district and the regional courts must increase proportionately. So those are things that are being very, very actively debated, discussed, consulted, and prepared for. I think also we just need to be mindful of the fact that the President, not too long ago, at the 30th anniversary of the opening of the almost say small claims court, of the Constitutional Court, announced the intention of the commitment of the executive to work hand in hand with the judiciary led by the Chief Justice to build, one, a unified judiciary, and two, to strengthen the institutional independence of the judiciary by implementing a judiciary-led court administration model. And I think we need collectively to think about where do small claims courts fit into a unified judiciary. This is, I'm publicly speaking off the record, and these are my own personal views. They do not represent any policy whatsoever. But the thought does occur to one, is it not something maybe worth thinking about, to say that a small claims court should perhaps be a community court, and that above a community court, one has a district court, and above a district court, one has a regional court, above a regional court, a provincial court, and so on, all within one system of justice. As I said, those are what, in the language of the political organization that I belong to, would be called unmandated reflections. But I think those are the kinds of things that we need to think and debate. And I think also the issues touched upon by Mr. du Plessis about making those small claims court procedures more modern, more in keeping with the realities of today's technological developments, introducing elements of review by a panel of commissioners. I think those are all of the very, very exciting ideas which are being pursued to make sure that our small claims courts rest on a solid constitutional foundation and that they have the necessary mechanisms to keep on being accessible, understandable, and affordable. So these things obviously don't happen by themselves. It's human beings who make them happen. And therefore, we want to start concluding by really appreciating all of the stakeholders who make small claims courts possible. We thank the commissioners, the clerks, the advisory boards, the steering committee who give their time, often voluntarily, to sustain these courts. Their dedication is central to making justice real for people. We want to thank the officials for their hard work and commitment. Similarly, the commissioners for small claims courts are magistrates, legal practitioners, and legal aid attorneys. They do so without any payment for their services. And we want to encourage, and Minister Kubai and I recently, when we met with the Legal Practice Council, really urged the council to encourage members to come forward in much, much greater numbers to serve as commissioners. We thank the members of the advisory boards for supporting the work of the small claims courts. We thank the members of the National Steering Committee for the very, very good and exciting work which they've done and which Mr. du Plessis has spoken about. And last but definitely not least, the unsung heroes and heroines of our small claims courts, the court managers who make sure that the administrative support is there, and the clerks who work to help members of the public bring those cases. So before I reach for the scissors, maybe just to say that the Booysens Small Claims Court is the 417th Small Claims Court that was established. Since we established Booysens in June of 2025, we've established one in Lenasia, the 418th. The Booysens Small Claims Court was proclaimed in June of 2025, and acting magistrate Ms. Adriana Bevalaqua has been appointed as a commissioner. All of the commissioners appointed in Gauteng can sit in Booysens, and we have commissioners from Soweto as well. The Booysens Small Claims Court sits on Wednesdays from 2 o'clock in Court 5. I think that's a particularly important development, that it's sitting during the day also. It makes it safer for members of the public and the commissioners to come. There are small claims courts, and I say much to the credit of both the commissioners and the clerks, who often sit in the evening, sometimes up to 10, 11 o'clock at night. I was visiting Pretoria the other day. Earlier, I'd visited the Wynberg Small Claims Court in Cape Town. Both of them regularly sit until 10 at night. We're advised that since the proclamation of the Booysens court. Remember that was the end of June. So for July, August, and not even half of September, the court has already received 78 letters of demand that have been issued. 13 matters have been heard. 10 have been settled and 3 have been dismissed. And I think that really demonstrates the speed, the effectiveness, efficiency of our small claims courts, that they can be proclaimed and 2.5 months later, they're operating, they've already heard matters, decided on those matters. And I think that just underscores the impact that these courts have. And especially in a community like Booysens, because in this, the communities served by the Booysens Magistrates Court really embody all of the challenges of South Africa today. Diversity enriched by migration, vibrant informal economies alongside deep unemployment, resilience amid poverty. And these contradictions are not signs of failure alone. They are signals of change, showing where society is under strain and where renewal must occur. Establishing the small claims court is not only about settling disputes, it's about intervening where pressures are greatest to help turn conflict into constructive resolution. This is also a diverse and densely populated area with a complex socioeconomic profile. The area is home to a mixed population, including working class South Africans and significant migrant communities from across the African continent. This diversity contributes to a rich cultural fabric, but it also presents challenges in service delivery, integration, and social cohesion. Booysens historically has been a hub of small-scale manufacturing, logistics, wholesale and motor-related businesses, informal trade, especially spaza shops, street vending and backyard rental economies, all play important role in household survival. Many households in the court's jurisdiction fall within low to lower middle income brackets, while some formal employment exists in nearby industrial and commercial areas. High levels of informal employment and income security persist. The broadest Johannesburg South region is characterized by above average unemployment rates, especially among young people and women. Household poverty is compounded by limited access to affordable housing, rising costs of living, and dependence on social grants. The area faces pressing issues of crime, substance abuse, overcrowding, and deteriorating urban infrastructure. Many households live in informal or subdivided rental units with insecure tenure. Access to reliable public services such as waste removal, water, and electricity remains uneven. And therefore, given these conditions, many residents cannot afford private legal representation, and the establishment of the small claims court at Booysens is therefore particularly significant, as it directly responds to the lived realities of people who require affordable, accessible, and user-friendly mechanisms to resolve disputes. What we inaugurate today is more than just a court. It is a response to the living movement of our society, a society shaped by struggle between hope and hardship, opportunity and exclusion. By opening this small claims court, we show that justice can adapt, evolve, and respond to the conditions of people's lives. It is in this way that the law becomes not only a reflection of our society, but also a force that helps to transform it. Now, the moment of the scissor. May I request Mr. Kun, Ms. Cardona, and Ms. Belavacqua to come forward and receive their letters and certificates of appointment. And
Check. Mr. Mawasa.
Booysens Small Claims Court was officially launched by the Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Mr. Andries MP, on the 12th of September 2025.
Thank you very much. We get to the next part of the program. Thank you. Hello? Okay. All right. Thank you very much, DM, for the insightful speech around the functioning and issues relating to access for the small claims court and the proposals to really improve its functioning. Ladies and gentlemen, we're getting to the final part of the program, where it will then be an engagement with yourselves, what we normally call an imbizo, so that we can give you an opportunity to raise questions and comments. We'll run that for probably for the next 30 minutes or so, then we are done. So I'm going to request that I be assisted with people that will have roving mics to be able to, assist with the people that will be speaking. So by just a show of hands, I'll start on my right. We'll give you a number, and then, and so on and so on. You can ask your question in any language. You just tell us your name and then the issue. So I'll start with the gentleman. I'll say number 1, right, yourself, and then the lady. Please keep your hands up so that we give you a number. So you are number 1, then the lady here is number 2. I don't see any number this side. And then I'll come this side. I'll have the gentleman as number 3 and the other gentleman at the back, number 4. Or perhaps maybe let's start with those ones just to kick off the process. Thank you. In that order. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Seki Pillay. I'm the chairperson of the Gleninda North Residents Association, the neighbor to the court. I want to commend the opening of the small claims court and the access to it, but my main comment is the physical access to the court as we're opening up major courts outside. The parking is one of the major concerns. And I'd like to ask the Department of Justice to assist the JNRA in getting the Department of Public Works to try and get the lane next door organized. We are maintaining the property next door for the past 10 years, and we're having continuous meetings in maintaining and securing the property so that we can assist with parking for the court. There is also a major concern that you have a lot of rats and those things coming into the court, which we need to resolve. But the Department of Public Works is not coming to the party so that GNRA can assist them in maintaining their property next door. So I would ask the Honorable Deputy Minister to please assist so we can get the Department of Public Works to get the property next door allocated to GNRA. We have a verbal agreement. We know that the court precinct has been extended. Construction will take place in 5 years, but who manages the property for that 5 years? That is our concern. So we're willing to do it, but we need some assistance to assist the Department of Public Works and the DOJ. Thank you so much.
Hello? Could you try that mic?
Hello?
Hello. Okay. I'd like to ask the question. For small claims courts, if you've got a, say you got a problem, but it was in December last year, is it possible, if you've still got all the stuff, to apply on small claims courts? That is my question. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. My name is Sipotla Chwayo from the CPF under Moffat View Police Station. Firstly, I think let's appreciate the launching of this small court. I think that deserves another round of applause. My question is around, I saw that there's a steering committee. One would like to know as to who constitutes that steering committee and how can members of the community, ordinary members of the community, form part of that steering committee. I think that question is important because in terms of disseminating information to the community, I think if we were to have community members also partaking in that steering committee, will actually go a long way. Thank you.
Hello, hi. Good afternoon, my name is Daniel Mukwebo. I'm part of an NPO in the Joburg South. We actually assisted as well in cleaning the court. It wasn't the first time. We have a lot of our community members that we've invited and they come to us for such information. So my question is a bit related to the lady at the beginning in terms of exclusions of how far back can you go. And then, yeah, as the gentleman also mentioned, we deal with a lot of community members. Would just like to know how do we communicate to the court from a perspective of an NPO and in assisting our community members. Thank you.
Can I borrow? Oh, yeah. All right. This one is working. DM, we've noted 4 questions. I suggest we get Mr. Makani to deal with maintenance of the area. And then maybe we could ask any commissioner to deal with the issue whether matters, prescribed. And then the National Steercom, would I ask Mr. Duplessis to deal with it? And then, yeah, I think number 4, it's also related to prescription. So any one of the commissioners, perhaps Mr. Makani, would you talk to the administration issues?
Thanks. I think it's not the first time I see the gentleman. As I relayed the story previously, I had engaged with them. So we'll set up a meeting outside this DM so that we look at the development of the area. Part of what we had envisaged or part of what we wanted to do with the area is that government departments moved from the leased building so that we then have a provincial office, the master's office and the family advocate being put in the place next door. But in terms of dealing with your daily challenges of rodents, we'll then engage DPW and look at if whether that responsibility can be taken up with DPW. Then through the court manager will then provide the feedback. Thanks.
Good afternoon again. I'm going to respond in respect to the lady that asked about the December issue. You will note that prescription of a debt, it's a period of 3 years. So if it's December, you are still way inside the prescription period. So you can come. Thank you.
I think we'll open it up again. So just to simplify the response is that as long as your matter is not longer than 3 years old, right, that you can bring it to the court. The court will deal with it. All right, that's what they call prescription, right? So you are allowed. So let's take a second bite. And if you you also, yes, somebody this side, is there somebody? Oh yes, the two oh sorry, I'll get to, sorry, Mr. Dobbs.
Yes, to the gentleman that asked that question, I can tell you the steering committee has been running like an oiled machine the last year or so. We've engaged probably more than 300-400 role players whilst we are busy with the processes. We recently had a very big meeting. DM was also part of the meeting, where we not only had commissioners and members of the public involved. So yes, we are actively engaging the public. I want to suggest to you, Advocate Supal is not here at the moment, but you can most certainly approach her. Professor Palakar is at the moment the chairperson of our committee. And I am quite frankly sure that their email addresses will be made available to you if you so request. And we have no problem, sir, whatsoever inviting you to our next few meetings. And if there's any other members of the public or any other organizations that want to get involved, then please make contact with us through the chairperson or advocate. And we will certainly invite you or consider your issues that you have.
Thank you very much, sir. We can take another round if there are still any further questions. Earlier on, I also wanted to suggest that, ladies and gentlemen, we also have people outside, right, that are doing the displays. If you want to ask about any other matter besides the small claims court, we've got the Department of Justice, we've got legal aid. You know, legal aid must answers everything, ne? And I've got here their big boss. They are the ones that actually are, they are just not called the small claims court, small lawyers, no. But they are the big lawyers. They are the lawyers when you don't have money. So they should be able to assist on any matter. They do provide, you know, aspects on civil. They provide advice, and so that we, you know, may not be able to raise the question here, but we have an opportunity to raise them outside. Are there any further questions, comments? Okay, I know it's been a long day, and all right, there's a lady at the back. And then I will take the lady just wearing a cap. And if I don't see any further hands, we shall accept that you shall forever hold your peace. Okay, Mama will be number 3. All right, so those would be the last 3 questions that we will take. And then the DM will sum it up, and then we are then done. Musagero, you know, once you get over 50, ne? Yeah, you want to sit less, and then we go. All right, so we get into the end now. Let's hear the 3 ladies in the order. Sorry. Yeah, no, we know. Yeah, just say.
Sorry, good afternoon to everyone. My name is Gwena, and I am a University of Johannesburg Community Engagement volunteer, one of the members that Mr. Mokove mentioned that they invited today. So my question, I think it's more of a question suggestion, because I remember Ms. Angel mentioned that when you come over to basically lay a claim, there is an interview process. So my question is there any way we can access those services, like maybe digitally, because we are moving into the full IR, and I'm also looking at it in a time-consuming way. Maybe try to shift the interview and everything digitally, as I think one of the commissioners also mentioned that 2 p.m. is a bit late early. So I think, is there any way that we can actually like integrate that system? Thank you.
Good afternoon. Umbuyazi Wakwadube, the Deputy Chairperson of the Men's Parliament in the City of Johannesburg, also the member of Community Advices Offices of South Africa. The first question that I have, actually the two questions that I have are directed to the Deputy Minister. One is that I think it was 2019 or 2020 where we gathered and submitted to the Parliament that we request that community-based paralegals are legalized, and we are not yet sure where is the process in terms of Parliament and how far it is as well. Secondly is the issue of the judiciary and the legislature. Because it seems that we say the constitution is the supreme law of the country. However, the judiciary at the same time can dispute the unconstitutionality of the constitution. So it becomes a problem to some of us because we don't understand whether the judiciary is supposed to interpret or unconstitutionalize the constitution of the republic. So I think if we can have a clarity on that, who makes the law and who decides what is unconstitutional in the constitution as a supreme law of the country. Thank you.
Hello? Those are only ones? I thought there were two ladies, but if not, Ms. Kadona? So I will ask Mr. Duplessis to deal with the digital access. Yeah, the other question is appropriately for the DM. It's very complicated. You know, he should be able to deal with it. Yes, ma'am.
The question is actually perhaps better addressed to Mr. Duplessis as part of the steering committee. As a commissioner, I have often granted judgments knowing full well that the enforcement thereof is probably going to make it an empty judgment. And perhaps what we need to look at is how to enforce those judgments once they've been granted. And also being in private practice with litigation, very often one of the best modes of compelling a defendant to comply is to list them on the credit bureaus because they don't want to damage their credit rating, especially when the defendant is a corporate entity. And perhaps the enforcement process, not having to move it to the magistrates court, converting it to another court with another case number, which also becomes laborious. And really the enforcement, because very often I think my fellow commissioners probably feel the same way, that they've granted the judgments knowing full well that the plaintiff might not get any satisfaction. Thank you.
For that? Oh, the mic is now working. I thought it was not working. All right, so let's then request perhaps the Mr. Duplessis to deal with that, and then the DM will then respond and include that as part of the, his summation of the proceedings. So I'll request Mr. Duplessis just to attend to the matter. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, I'm glad you raised the issue of online communication, if you can basically refer to that. The steering committee is seriously looking at that. Until we've made submissions to the minister sometime next year, I want to strongly suggest that in respect of the issue that you raised, currently every single magistrates court is supposed to have access to giving evidence electronically. In the form of a router. I'm sure Mr. Malema can also assist us in that effect. The only problem is that, you know, in most magistrates courts, even when it comes to small claims court, you know, staff are limited. And whilst we are making a whole new move towards giving evidence over social media or whatever the case may be, the small claims court's one of the first courts that's really making an issue of getting that sorted out. We are engaging courts to make it possible, for example, for witnesses to testify via these electronic channels and give evidence to that effect. It's really at the beginning of the process. The Department of Justice is throwing a lot of money at that at the moment, and we are looking at making that possible. It is just a case at the moment that you are going to, if you want to do what you want to do, basically have to have either the clerk of the small claims court divide her day, Angel, to divide her day into portions where she deals digitally with complaints or physically with complaints, and these are practical issues which we have to look at and which we have to consider. The budget issues involved there as well. So yes, I'm very positive that we're going in that direction. We're going to get there. I cannot give you the guarantee that we're going to get there in the next year or the next 18 months or so, but we're moving in that direction. Okay. To come to the advisory board question there, ma'am, it's an ongoing problem, and it's been a problem since the days that I was a clerk of the small claims court. The committee is really looking at that situation and the alternatives that are available. Once again, until we have viable options available to enforce those judgments, be it back into the small claims court like it was done originally, or whether the system is slightly tweaked to make it more user-friendly for members of the public when it comes to the enforcement of the judgment, I want to, as a practical suggestion in the meantime, suggest, and I'm so glad to see here at Booysens you have a functional advisory board. We have legal aid here today. We have quite a few community organizations available here today, the law clinics and so on. I want to, as an interim measure, strongly suggest, and that is what some courts are doing at this stage. We are incorporating the advisory board meetings into the magistrate court's case flow meetings to make sure that we address, because with the advisory board, you only have meetings 4 or 5 times a year. With case flow management meetings, you have them on a monthly basis. Okay, we are trying to incorporate issues regarding the small claims court into the monthly case flow management meetings, and many of the advisory board members or the chairpersons engage, for example, legal aid, or through the case flow management meetings, engage legal aid, engage the university law clinics and other organizations that assist. And I can tell you, for example, in Tembisa, where I am, legal aid, when it comes to execution, even if the person does not, the mean tests becomes a problem, the means tests becomes a problem for an individual. We've had an undertaking from our legal aid that they will assist members of the public, not just with advice when it comes to the execution, but in many instances assist them in preparing the documentation. And the law clinics we've engaged as well, and they are to a greater extent helping as well. So for the interim, I want to strongly suggest that the advisory boards engage these organizations, get them to help the public, to give them good advice, so that we don't end up with empty judgments. You know, even if the person is unemployed, the members of the public must know, you know, you are the private detective, you are the one running this case. You are going to receive news at some stage, or if you do your own little bit of investigation, that this person is employed now, or this business does have assets that can be attached and so on. And even if it's 6 months or a year down the line, you know, engage the execution process again. But I can tell you that that the steering committee is looking at simpler ways to dealing with this. We will, when we give the minister our report back, hopefully have alternative suggestions for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dupes. I will then request the DM to deal with the other legal questions and then wrap it up, and then we request the councillor to close for us. Thank you, DM.
Thank you very much, Mr. Malema. Firstly, my apologies that I'm addressing you with a lozenge in my mouth. Otherwise, I'm not sure whether my voice is going to hold. I do have to apologize up front because this thing of eating while addressing meetings has caused some problems not too long ago. I think firstly, just to demonstrate that contrary to what people might believe about politicians and promises, we do keep them actually. So I did say that I was going to share a story to rival Mr. du Plessis. I haven't forgotten. So one day I attended a small claims court sitting in Durban. The applicant was a woman, isiZulu speaking. The respondent was a man. I think he was, I think he might have been Hindi speaking. So the case revolved, it was a cell phone case. She had taken a cell phone for repairs. She believed that the phone wasn't properly repaired. Took the matter to the court. She came, the commissioner swore her in, she told her story, and in addition to the phone not being repaired, she alleged that the owner of the repair shop didn't speak very nicely to her, that he swore at her. So when his chance came, he was already in rearing and starting to tell his story. The commissioner said, "No, Mr. So-and-so, please, wait. I must still swear you in." All he heard was swear. He said, no, me no swear. So indeed, small claims courts, in addition to providing and making an indispensable contribution to access to justice, do also provide for very, very good entertainment value. Secondly, Mr. Mokwebo, thank you very, very much for your input, but even more, thank you even more for the work that you and your organization do, your active involvement in the court, in support of court. I think it's a very, very welcome contribution to our justice system. 3, Mr. Dube, thank you very much for your questions. I think firstly, you raised the very important issue of the role of community advice officers. Now, I think you know that not too long ago, I had the honor of being invited by the Dula Umar School of Paralegalism to attend the graduation ceremony. I did so with the Deputy Chief Justice, Dunstan Mlambo, who's a long-standing champion of the paralegal movement. Paralegal movement for me is also very, very special. During my time at Lawyers for Human Rights in the early 1990s, Lawyers for Human Rights also had a paralegal training project. And I just know from my involvement, both in human rights law, but in the struggle against apartheid, the very important role that community advice officers played, not just in providing legal advice and assistance, but also being centers for the community to come together, to organize, and to take up issues. And we're very happy that the Department of Justice at the moment, through a program known as the Pledge Project, is with money from National Treasury, is assisting community advice officers. I think we're supporting 88 at the moment, with the intention to increase that to 110 in the current financial year. Now, I've said to officials of the department, we really need to work hard to strengthen the links between our small claims courts and the community advice officers, because very often people are going to be going to those advice officers in search of solutions, of remedies to the problems that they have. And yes, and I would think that many of the issues that they bring to the advice office are issues that can also be brought to the small claims court. So it's an appeal to yourselves to please get information from the department that you can distribute through community advice officers, but also for the department to be more proactive and to be reaching out to those community advice officers. On that score, I also promised in my speech that I would talk more about counselors, so I'm going to do that. I must say I'm really, really overjoyed to have this number of counselors. Initially, the guest list only included Councillor Crichton because it's in his immediate ward. But I said to the official, please, let's extend that to all of the councillors within whose jurisdiction the Booysens court, and by extension the small claims courts fall. Because I know, as a public representative myself, that people are going to come to them with problems. And we know that in the minds of people, they don't divide government into national, provincial, and local. They just see government. So they're going to come to councillors and say, but why is the justice system not working? When I go out and do constituency work, they don't care that certain things are national competencies. They're going to say, but why is my tap not running? And I think that's why it's so important for us as public representatives from all three spheres of government to work closely together. And I'm sure that many of your constituents are going to be coming to you with problems that are capable of being dealt with by the small claims court. So really an appeal to yourselves to make the existence of small claims courts known and to explain to your constituents how they can access this court. The issue of the recognition of paralegals, unless, and the passage of years is also, my memory is not immune from the passage of years, but if my recollection is correct, the issue of paralegals is dealt with in the Legal Practice Act. I don't think it's necessary for more legislation from Parliament. What is necessary is for the Legal Practice Council to activate certain of those provisions in the Legal Practice Act. And that's something that Minister Kubai and I raised with the council in the past 2 weeks when we met with him, to say, can we please have a further engagement? Let us give recognition giving recognition to paralegals, but also encouraging members who fall under the Legal Practice Council to be small claims court commissioners. One, just as a service to the public, but maybe more self-interestedly, to discharge the number of hours, the pro bono hours that they are meant to do. So the issue of recognition of paralegals is very much on the agenda in the discussions between the Minister, and the Legal Practice Council. Look, if there's a need for further amendments, we can certainly look at that. But I think the challenge is to operationalize that which we have at the moment. Now, the last question you raise about the judiciary and the legislature. Mr. Malima, until what time is the program? How much time do I have? No. No, but on a serious note, you see, that does raise very serious issues. And I alluded to that in passing in my input. The reality is that the very notion of a constitutional democracy is coming under increasing attack, both in our country and globally. And I think we need to be very, very vigilant about that. There are political and other forces in our country who suggest that we should revert to a system of parliamentary sovereignty, in which Parliament makes the laws, courts interpret those laws, but they have no power to measure a law against the Constitution and to declare it unconstitutional. Now, we all know where that took us in the past, and I don't think we want to go back there. So we've got to defend our constitutional democracy. We've got to defend the independence of our judiciary and the powers of the judiciary. At the same time, we sit in the world with a problem where there's again a rise of populism. And part of that populism is informed by a sense that there are unaccountable elites that run the world, and that elected democracy has become powerless, that people can go to the polls, elect people, but those people don't actually have any power to do anything. That's also something that we must be very, very sensitive to. And unfortunately, those two lines seem to be intersecting, and people are starting to take aim at the judiciary to say, but who exactly are we go to elections, we elect people, and then these unelected people change what they've done. That's a very narrow and incorrect view. But at the same time, we must ensure that in very appropriate ways, that the judiciary in its own way accounts. Not to be called to Parliament like I or the Minister would be called, but in ways that are appropriate and respectful to the judiciary. Where the judiciary can come and table reports about how they've used the money that all of us pay as taxpayers, what they do with that money, how they perform, again, in a way that's respectful, because we don't want to put our judges in the crossfire of what happens in Parliament. Those of us who are elected, we know the rough and tumble of politics. That's why we're there. We can give as good as we get. No gloves on, everything. But judges can't come and fight in Parliament with politicians. It's not correct, not proper. So we need our own special mechanisms to deal with that. So in short, I think that the decision that we took at the outset of our democracy to have judicial oversight, to have the power for the judiciary to have the power to be the arbiters of what, in terms of legislation and executive conduct, is constitutional and unconstitutional, was the correct decision. And we only have to think back, not too long ago, about some of the bad things that happened in our country. And it was judiciary that was able to come in and take correct decisions that really have been to the benefit of our nation. And we must stand together and defend that. Thank you.
Thank you, DM, for clarifying those issues. I want to suggest that perhaps we should liaise with Ushara as well, because she's dealing with that project that the gentleman related to on the recognition of the the paralegals and so on. So we're getting towards the end. I have a councillor who's been waiting patiently. Mr. Michael Crichton, would you please come and give us the vote of thanks, and would you please welcome him with a round of applause, please?
Thank you very much, Program Director, Mr. Malema. So I have the unenviable task of speaking after a lengthy program. But I'd like to start off by thanking the Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Honourable Andries for being here today. I'd like to thank the councillors that are here within the precinct of the Booysens Court, because the Booysens Court deals with seven wards, because it has the jurisdiction of the Moffat View, Booysens and Mondial police stations. So thank you very much for being here. I know that we also have a member of the provincial legislature, Honourable Sergio de Santos, that is here today. And amongst the public that's here today, we've got ward committee members, people involved with residents associations, business forums, community police forum, NGOs, NPOs. So thank you all for being here for this opening of the Small Claims Court. And I think that the Small Claims Court is going to be very beneficial to the communities that fall under the Booysens Magistrates Court, because often as a councillor, myself and my colleagues, we often have members of the community approach us with civil matters or civil disputes where people owe their money because they don't know where else to turn to. So at least now we are able to advise them to come to the Booysens Magistrates Court. We can tell them there's an angel here at the court that they can come and speak to resolve their matters. And I'm very grateful that this court opened a few years ago, because before this court opened, the people in the southern suburbs of Johannesburg would have to go to the courts in the inner city, which involves traveling costs as well. So having this court open helps bring justice to the people. And the fact that we now have a small claims court means that we're able to access justice without going through extensive monetary expense in terms of hiring lawyers and so on. So I think this is a great asset to the community. When I was first elected as the ward councillor in 2016, the court was in the process of being built. So I had to naturally take over chairing the steering committee for the building of the court. And the building of the court in itself gave economic opportunities to local SMMEs and local workers. And now it's helping us because it's in a more or less central point of the 7 wards that it services. Obviously, as was mentioned by Mr. Sagi Pillay, there's still a parking logistical issue that we need to overcome. And hopefully we can get the buy-in of the Department of Public Works to enable the court to utilize more of the land next door to the court, which is a bit of a problem to both the court and the surrounding communities. So with that said, I just want to thank each and every person that was involved in today's launch of the Small Claims Court. And may the Small Claims Court go from success to success. I thank you.
Thank you. I would say he was the last man standing, but actually there is a lady who's actually standing. Ms. Nyimandi, just to make an announcement, and then we do a photo shoot, and then we close the event. Madam?
Thank you, PH, and good afternoon, DM, Magistrate Commissioners, and everyone. You know, I'm here for the one last thing, and that is the beautiful part of the end of this program, right? The Department of Justice is so generous in such a way that we do give refreshments. So may I request that those that are having the text, those that are here, our guests, DM and your team, you go back to the first floor where you were having the briefing session in the morning, then the refreshment will be served there. And then may I request the rest of us to remain here, then the refreshment will be served while we're within the marquee. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. And then there is an opportunity now to do a photo shoot. DM, the guest, and yourselves. I don't know, hey, where's the PC people that can, yeah, madam, this is now your show. You direct where the, huh? Who's doing what? No. So let's start, you know, and then the guests, please. I don't know if some colleagues would be able to stand here. Would you direct? The guests that were invited, VIPs, if you could come, some could come on the stage. Huh? Sorry? So the tall people can come on the stage, and then yeah. Yeah. Hello. Please, would like to take as many pictures as possible, so don't go. We'll just take pictures in rounds. Okay. If we could have all the people on the stage, the DM in the middle. Donald, get the DM in the middle. All right. Yep. We can get Madam in the front. Are you fine in the front? You should be at the back, Commissioner. Patricia. Are you okay, all right, so thank you. We can all say cheers or justice. We can say justice. We can say cheers. Cheers. Thank you very much. And then we can get the other people also to come in. Would like everybody to be part of the show. Yes, please. The
Can't we do it so that it's not everybody that comes at the same time?
yeah, but this group is supposed to go off. All right, just take more, and then we'll have the group on the floor moving out, and then we have another group. We can say again, justice. Justice. Thank you very much.
We can then have another group coming. Hey, Chief, how are you? Great stuff. I didn't see you. Okay. All right, thank you. Let's have another group, please. Okay.